All right, we're here with Victor Nguyen, and we're doing an interview about music. Victor was a former student of mine. I'd say how long ago? 10 years ago?
Yeah, about 10 or maybe 11 years ago. Yeah.
About 11 years ago. And we're going to talk about some things that he did in the past and some things he's doing in the future and with the music business. So we'll start off with how did you get interested in music and how old were you?
Oh man. I think growing up, I always had music in my family. Like my dad plays guitar and he sings. And he would always sing songs to me, and I would always sing along with him. And then it always got to the point where, like, I'd take out all the pots and pans, start like banging on them. And like I always knew I wanted to play drums, but they forced me to play piano first. And I mean, I learned a lot doing piano, but I really wanted to play drums and all that. And so I always knew really liked music. It took probably like 3 years before of just playing piano before I actually got enough kind of like experience and was able to convince them to let me play drums. So that's kind of how I started with music and falling into it.
Great.
Yeah.
So going through, you went to public school, private school?
I started in private school, uh, kindergarten, all the way up through 8th grade. I was in private school in San Francisco. It's across the street from San Francisco State University. It's a school called St. Thomas More. Honestly, they don't really have like any kind of extracurricular programs there. It's very academic. They do have like singing classes where like the whole class goes and they practice singing together. And we did very basic understanding of music theory, like just what a quarter note is, what an eighth note is, and then you get the recorder, right, and you got to play the recorder. So that's when you start being able to play an instrument. I think we had xylophones, like the mini toy ones, where you could learn to play some notes, where they teach you some notes, and then for percussion, they would take like a bucket and just flip it upside down. They'd give you the mallet from the xylophone. You just bang on that, and that's kind of the percussion thing. But it was mainly singing. It was it's a Catholic school, so we do more like choral stuff. And it wasn't, it's not like gospel music or anything. It's very, the old Roman style of choral music, and people would sing in the church and all that. But yeah, from the school itself, they didn't provide very much backing in middle school. It wasn't until high school where we got like where I went to public school and we got a more formal education. It's very, dog eat dog. There's chairs and everything, so you have to compete for those positions. If you want to be like a first chair drummer in the drum line, or when you're in the kind of orchestral stage, like what instrument do you want to play, and you have to audition for it. So yeah, I mean, growing up I went to James Logan High School. It's back then it was very competitive. Still now it's competitive high school for music. I was in the drum line all 4 years. I moved up. I started on cymbals and I ended up on tenor drums. Yeah, it's and from there it's very selective. It's a very big drum line, or a lot of people audition, and there's probably only like 12 spots when I was there, just because we only had so much equipment. I know now it's much bigger. It's a great thing. And yeah, and then on the, I guess, orchestral side, I could play everything in the back, like the snare drum, the bass drums, and all that. But I really focused on timpani. I was a timpanist for about 3 years. And so I moved on up being, in the timpani world over there and getting my ears really well attuned to the tones, but also, it's a tonal percussion instrument. And I really liked playing it. It's a lot of fun. And then after that, I went into college, and I had a lot of friends from high school who decided to go, get a music major at San Jose State, and I'd always still hang out with them, and we'd play around once in a while. But at that point, I chose to go a different route, away from learning music. But in the background, I always would, try to stay with music, and I kind of went a completely different route than them in that sense, because I got into like DJing and producing music. Like I started producing music like when I was about 15, using like digital software. I started on Fruity Loops. It was like one day my friend told me about it, and then I got so into it, and then I met up with a bunch of different people later on, and started moving up to. I moved to Ableton after, and really got into the music scene that way. We made a lot of kind of underground kind of dance music at the time. I actually lived in a house with a bunch of music producers for a while. And yeah, I guess that's my initial upbringing from middle school all the way up. But, yeah, thing that's kind of like how I started, and how I got into all the little things. Of course, like within that, I did take lessons from you, and that really did start the foundation from going into high school. It's a very competitive place at that point, and so especially me going into a school where I didn't know anyone. Like everyone was from Union City, and even though I was born and raised in Union City, I didn't go to school in Union City. So everyone else, they already had kind of like the beginning orchestral training on drums and all that. And since my school didn't provide that, being taught by you really helped out. And of course, everyone there, it's when you're in there, like you have to take lessons or you won't be successful. You can try on your own, but the people who take lessons generally always do better. And that's something that all the band instructors will always say, you have to take lessons. It's very competitive. So.
And that school, Logan, was like, they've won so many awards for marching percussion.
Yep.
I know they're huge. Can you talk a little bit about when you went to the Olympics and you guys played for, what was it, the 2000, or what was
it? 2008 Beijing Olympics. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that experience and going with the band and how that all came about?
Yeah. So it was, I guess it starts in 2007, right? Where there's like only a select few amount of schools get invited to even go to Beijing. And one of my school was selected, and within that, it's kind of like, hey, they ask you, do you want to go or not? So of course I said yes. It's a great opportunity. So me and my friends, we all signed up, and they flew us off, and we fly over to Beijing, or we actually fly into Shanghai, and then we meet all the other schools. There's probably like 10 other high schools from the US, and then there's a few colleges there, and we're just representing the United States. There's actually people from Australia, other people from China, and other parts of Europe, and all over the place, Brazil. everyone, the idea was everyone has, a representative for their country. And it's all either high school and college level students. And we all had like this kind of big body of music. I think there was probably like 8 songs that we all had to learn, and it's probably about like an hour and a half worth of music. And I mean, in the summertime, right before leaving, we'd like all the drummers and the whole band, we'd practice together for probably like 5-6 hours every day, for 2 weeks, before we flew over. And when we got there, Logan was the only like band that knew all the music by heart, and everyone was actually still learning it while we were in over there. And so if you were in Logan, you actually had a bunch of free time because they're like, these guys already know the music. So they actually, since we're like staying at the Olympic Village and stuff, so we actually get to go play laser tag and stuff. And then we'd come back, and then everyone was like, oh, did everyone learn the music? And then we finally, like after probably like 3 days, we finally all got to play together. And it's hard to manage that many people. I mean, like there's some big names. There's Scott Johnson was there. He was teaching, head of percussion there. And he was, trying to teach, some of the snare drummers. But when you have like maybe like 50 to like 70 snare drummers, like you can't hear from end to end. And then like everyone plays just, first thing is like everyone played one note at the beginning, and it's a giant roll. That's what it sounds like. It's hard to manage it, but over time it did get better. And I remember it like it was loud. Just being in the whole drumming section, there was like drum solos and everything, and it's loud. Like it's so loud, it like you can feel your bones vibrate. It's insane, and it's also insanely hot over there. But we did do some performances. We did some parades, and we did perform like right towards the beginning of the Olympics stadium to the Olympic Stadium. And yeah, that was great. I think we the whole world was watching you. Yeah, it was great. It felt good to be in that situation at such a young age, and to be able to interact with so many people and talk about music and play it with everyone. It was, it's invaluable.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So when you were studying with me, I remember you were doing hybrid rudiments and all these things you started to get into.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about who was influencing you at the time? Was it other students? But you really started getting into it.
Oh yeah, definitely. So in the drum line at James Logan back then, the main instructor was Roger Carter. And he's a really big on, going over the bar lines and playing weird rhythms and having a different kind of understanding of music. In terms of it's all groove, and it doesn't matter how, you can somehow fit, a square peg into a circular hole, and it'll make sense at the end of the day. But to be able to do that, you have to be able to have the hands to do that. And so there's that list of hundreds of hybrid rudiments where you have to be, it builds up your hand strength. And then it also, each kind of rudiment kind of has its own kind of groove to it. And there's different interpretations of these hybrid rudiments too. I'd say, you could have it more like triplet based, or push it to like a 5-tuplet feel. And it kind of like changes, where the accent patterns are and all that. And so, I guess it was like, he would talk about it, but he wouldn't really push us to like, learn it. It was really the students, really in between each other, like that competitiveness between students. It's like, hey, like let's learn some hybrid rudiments and really get our music going and everything. Because back then it was definitely, it's a pressure cooker uh, of talent and maybe just grit too. Learning all those rudiments and the people who were there, like I mean, even the years that I was there, like a lot of the students are still like either actively doing music or they actually teach at other schools now. Like I went to school with Daniel Rakoder, like Lowell, De Leon, Tien, Nguyen, and like those guys still teach at high schools, and or all around. And then some of those other guys, they're in BDE or like Blue Devils, and they do the shows around here for the Blue Devil or for like 49ers or the Warriors. I mean, everyone's still pretty involved with music in their own way. But yeah, it was definitely kind of, the influence was definitely from our instructor. He really pushed the grooviness of the music, even though it's marching band. It's very, there's a box and you have to be very, very strict with certain interpretations, but we try to push the boundaries with that kind of stuff. And yeah.
So did you, were you playing drum set at that time? Were you playing the whole kit, and were you playing in jazz band or anything like that? Or is it mainly just marching at the time?
The time when I first started that, it was mainly marching. I did get into a little bit of jazz band stuff a little bit later on, towards, I guess, the later end of my high school career, just because, we needed jazz set drummers. Yeah, it's the whole kind of situation at the school is the marching band definitely is like very sought after to be a part of, and then of course the orchestral bands are like you have to be in an orchestral band to be even able to do marching band. And there's even different levels of that, and then the jazz band is more of an option. Like if you want to do it, then you can do it. It's a bigger time commitment because you'd have to wake up at like 6 a.m. to make it to practice. That's the only time the jazz band could meet. So I would go there probably 6 a.m. and get ready, and then it's not some songs you don't even play drum set. Some songs you play vibraphone, and we there's a first chair, second chair, we'd rotate between songs. So we'd play some jazz. We'd have like little jazz kind of sessions at the school, like little jazz nights, and other schools would come and we would play with each other. And at the time, there were 3 different jazz bands. Like even though it wasn't as popular, there were still a lot of students kind of pursuing it. But of course, these jazz bands are smaller. Maybe like 3 horn or 3 trumpet players, one trombonist, and a few clarinet players, and a upright bass player, drum set player, vibraphone player, and that was basically one band. And then all 3 of them were about the same size. Yeah, it's great. Being able to do that, it's very different than marching band. It's or orchestral music, classical style music. Yeah, it's all about the swing, the feel, the interpretation. Like listening to the other components of the band. Like sometimes, you want to embellish like a horn part or something. You got to double it up on the drums, so give it that nice stabby, nice feel to it. It's all about the feel. And that's a different mindset, but definitely having, a strong foundation with rudiments and just being able to be comfortable with playing drums and having confidence even. That's really what I think was important, or that came out of me when I played jazz. So, yeah.
When when you were doing drum set, and this is outside of school,
Mhm.
and I know that when you're doing all the different marching programs and whatnot,
Yeah.
you had to practice and you had to memorize, and you were doing like 6 hours a day. Were you practicing on your own? Did you have a practice routine, drum set wise, that you were practicing on your own?
Hmm.
And were you spending time with, let's say, learning songs, learning music, practicing coordination styles, um, different things on the non-percussion but more drum set side?
Hmm. On drum set side, yeah. I mean, you got to play. You got to be able to play the songs. So yeah, of course. If in the events where I had to play, a written piece of music, yeah, that'd be the first thing I'd do is learn the whole song, and try to break it up into sections. And there's definitely like parts where I would focus on if I struggle on it. I mean, even no matter how hard I try, I'm terrible at sight reading. I don't know why. I've I got into a point where I'm like I can get through it, but I've always sight read. I think the thing with sight reading for me is I'm not very confident in it, and so it'd always be better for me just to like I'd play it super slow, and then after I play it maybe one or two times, I'm like, okay, I memorized this. I can play it way faster now. And then I think just being able to turn the page over and just play, and use my ears made me a lot more confident in my playing, and that's kind of how I got to it, with like having to learn a piece of music, just practicing on drum set and just like chopping out and stuff. Oh man, I had like a whole playlist on like my iPod, like the little old style iPod with the wheel, and it was just like a bunch of death metal songs, honestly, And like I just first, of course, I listened to those songs like everywhere I'd go, like walking down the street, going to the store, driving somewhere. I'd listen to those songs, and like that's how I kind of learned those songs. I learned them by ear. And then, or if I struggled on something, like I could look up maybe there would be a video somewhere out there of that drummer playing that. And I'm like, oh, that's how he does. He does like a crossover like this, or he starts with the left hand or something like that. And then, that's how I would practice generally, just put my iPod on shuffle and like have my playlist and I just play along with that song. And if I like messed up or something, I play the whole song again over and over. And there'd be days, where like that's practicing that way is a lot of fun, for me. Of course, there's other days where I'm like, man, I really need to focus on playing like this certain rudiment or like this certain idea, um, that I heard, and like I just don't have my brain wrapped around it yet. Like I know what it sounds like, but my body doesn't understand, what goes where with it. And so there would be times where I'm like, I'll play something over and over for like an hour to 3 hours until I get the idea down, like just the idea, and then I'll be able to move it over, shift it, and play a little bit more confidently like that. So yeah, definitely. I mean, practice wise, of course, there are times where you have to practice the part because it's a gig or something. But just for your own personal enjoyment, of course, but practice what you like. And it doesn't really feel like practicing at that point when you're doing like that.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
great advice.
Yeah.
Um, so, can you talk about you going to college and what you studied in college?
Mhm.
And did you quit music for a while, or were you continuing to play? I know you said you were doing producing and whatnot, but
Yeah.
what did you study in college? You said you went to San Jose State.
Yeah. So at San Jose State, I studied industrial and systems engineering. In that time, I mean, I quit drumming per se because I didn't have a drum set available really to me. I did have my drum pad, and I'd play it once in a while. And even inside, the department, of course, there's other people who played marching drums or played drum set moving up. So it's nice. It's a nice kind of like bonding tool or get to know someone. But yeah, I didn't really play drums for the duration of college, unless I came home and I played. But yeah, most of the time I didn't. So I did lose a lot of my chops, but in that time, I also really had, since I was on my computer all the time, I really got into like music producing more, took it a lot more seriously. And it was another way where I met a bunch of other kind of producers and stuff who were into different styles and everything, and even some of my drumline friends where they got into it too, and it became like another competition between us, to make music and go to school at the same time. And it's great. It's great too, because when you're in college, you have a little bit more free time, I'd say, to do what you are passionate about. Also, you get to meet a bunch of different people who understand different things about themselves. They choose to go either a science route or a humanitarian route or something like that, and it's a great mix of people. And it really inspires you to try different things, and that's the time to just go out and try different things. So yeah, in school, of course, I had the structured, engineering background. Like they teach you to think the same way as each other, analytically, the scientific method, and kind of troubleshoot through ideas. Like, oh, we come to an area where something breaks or like something doesn't work, so come up with a new idea, try something else. Like that's a very scientific method of doing something. Of course, then there's all the theories, like everyone has to study math. Everyone has to know how to write good papers so we can communicate well with each other. And yeah, upper level physics and all that. That's there. You learn a lot of stuff. But I think at the same time, music is always kind of like, I don't think I've ever met a human being that doesn't like music, right? It's kind of like always shared, right? Like not even playing it. Like some people, they know they can't play it, but everyone enjoys listening to it, right? And it's always a great kind of icebreaker or bonding tool. Most of your friends that you gain in college, they either have a similar music taste than you, or maybe something that's completely different, and that's kind of what gets you guys as friends in the beginning. So, I guess music production stuff. I like lived in a deep house kind of environment, like deep house, the whole kind of like underground dance scene was like really underground for like 12 years. And then like I met up with some deep house DJs, and then I guess within those years I was in college, like deep house actually became really mainstream at the time. And so like I was doing all the like DJing shows at night at the clubs, and I just met so many people that way through college, and it was kind of crazy, that like I was still studying engineering at the time, but like during the day and then at night I was like working at the club, like either DJing or taking like, it's a whole kind of a troop thing, so you support your friends and they support you, and take photos for them, and all that, help each other out, promote and stuff. So
wow. Can you talk about the some of the software like Ableton and Logic and different types of DAW software that you learned?
Yeah.
I don't know if you were doing video production too. Were you mainly doing audio production?
Yeah.
Let's talk about the software that you had to learn, and how hard was it for you to learn it?
So yeah, I started with Fruity Loops, and I really liked like that style of you make a loop with the MIDI and everything, and it's very smooth and elegant on how Fruity Loops does it. And I really liked it. But most of the people I was working with um, were using Ableton, and so I moved over to Ableton at that time. And Fruity Loops, it's great software. It's just a different work environment. Ableton is more kind of audio oriented versus MIDI oriented, like Fruity Loops is. So you can really see all the audio waveforms and move and drag things around, and you get a whole effect chain that's like per that audio thing, and that's nice compared to other software where it's not right in front of your face and you can see the chain. And yeah, I mean, after that, because at the time when I started, Ableton had a lot of tools, like they had launch pads and they had all these nice kind of like get your hands on it. And it's almost like, touching analog gear. Ableton really had a lot of like backers like Korg and Novation that helped them out, make kind of a lot of analog-esque stuff so you can get your hands on it. And that's kind of another reason why I jumped over to Ableton. And they have that whole performance mode thing too, so you can have all your loops just like Fruity Loops, but you can activate it all using a launcher. So I mean, it kind of changed the mindset of being an at-home producer sitting down with the software to being able to produce a show with the software. That's why I kind of moved over to Ableton. Other audio stuff, I used to work at the radio station at San Jose State, so they have Pro Tools there. I worked in if you want to make a commercial or something, or all the DJ whatever, and you have all the like reverb and everything and all those one shots. Like I would be in the back making all that at night, late at night in the studio. Yeah, that's all Pro Tools. But that stuff, I mean, it's similar to Ableton actually. I know Pro Tools actually probably predates the whole workflow that Ableton has now. Ableton does definitely pull a lot of stuff between them two, but I think even though all the softwares that are a little bit different, the core of them are the same in that they're there to process audio. A compressor compresses audio and all that. Like the tools that are there, they're the same between them. It's just kind of like the workbench that you're working with. To learn these, I think Fruity Loops for me was the easiest to learn, just because you just right mouse click or left mouse click, and you have these tools, you just click on them, and you right mouse click or you left mouse click and they do something, and there's a grid right in front of you, and if music is just flowing with the timeline, it's easy to work with. Ableton, a little bit harder at the beginning, but once you kind of understand how the mindset is with Ableton, it was a lot easier. It is similar, where you have your tools and everything, but understanding different track types and everything, that's really different with Ableton versus Fruity Loops. And then with I mostly did audio stuff in when I was in the radio station. There's no MIDI at all, so it's literally just arranging audio in the right way that you want, where things kind of transition between each other, crossfade, and what sections need to be kind of, they call it bathtubing, where you kind of like fade out and you have maybe someone talk over the music a little bit and then it fades back up and then it ends the commercial, that kind of stuff. Learning those techniques and all that, they're applicable between all the softwares that you'll ever probably see out there. But learning it's not hard. Literally probably spent like maybe like a month to learn Ableton to the point where I was able to actually make music and stuff. And yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Can you talk about how you started to get into playing music out live in a band, and how you found your bandmates and started to do that? Were you out of college at that time?
Yeah.
And you were starting to play drums again?
Yeah. So I was out of college. I graduated, and at the time I was kind of like lost for music. Like I did a lot of the producing stuff, but I got really more into the mixing because like I guess I hit a wall creativity wise, and so it just helped to like listen to other people's stuff. And then like since I kind of know how sounds on sound kind of work, I was just doing the mixing for them. And then I was at the store. I had a coupon at a Guitar Center. It was like a 25% off coupon. So I'm there, and I went to the drum area, and like the greatest thing about Guitar Center is it's like it's like me, a kid in a candy shop. Like me, I just play everything when I'm there. It's like that's what I do when I'm there. So I was there. I was just playing the drum sets there, just because I like. Even though it feels so great just to play drum set, it's like if you ever feel kind of down or you have a lot of energy, like really upbeat, it just feels great just to play drum set. So I was there, I was just jamming away. There's always other guys there too, and they want to jam with you too, and or even battle you, like double kick battles and everything. Who can play this the fastest, right? Or for the longest, right? And so yeah, just having around jamming out there, and then like I'm playing the drums, and then I go over there and I'm like looking around at all the hand drums. Maybe I might buy one because I have a great coupon. And then these two guys approach me, Gio and Marcel, and they're like, "Hey, do you play drums?" I'm like, "Yeah, I play drums." And they're like, "Hey, let's meet up and let's hang out sometime." So yeah, we traded each other's numbers, and I just showed up randomly one day and we played, and we were like, "Wow, we actually, there's like some unspoken kind of chemistry there, like with like they'd come up with an idea, and I'd be able to play along with it right away and all that. Yeah, and it was just lucky, I guess. That's how I met them. But after that, I definitely did notice like my chops weren't quite where they used to be, and I'd be able to hear what I wanted to play in my head, but physically my body would be like, "Oh man, there's a bunch of cobwebs there," And so yeah, then that's when I started trying to really practice a lot more. Drumming again. And yeah, I went back to my old books, and I was like, "Oh man, I remember these exercises." And I was like, "Oh man, I have to be able to play these with each one of my hands, like keep consistent with my left hand, like the left hand lead it, and then play the whole rudiments with my right hand, and then switch it up, play the whole thing with my right foot, and then play the whole thing with my left foot." And like I remember practicing this all the time, and it never like felt like the ideas left me, but definitely like mechanically my body, my arms are longer now than they were then or something. So I have to definitely practice to get all that rust off of me. But yeah, I mean, it was great because I think at that time, like getting with the band, it was like the first time I would play a piece of live music, like acoustically, that wasn't written for me. I got to be in control of it and write my own parts and and all that. And I'd always make it so like, okay, don't write a part that's too hard for me to play at the time. Like there'll always be another time, like another song we could write where I could push the envelope even more and more as I get my chops back up and everything. So yeah, but it felt great. And then, like, it's kind of like, you're pioneering your own thing, because building your own band, and there's a lot of other aspects of just music, of course. Like what are you guys going to name yourselves? What kind of music do you want to play, and all that, and figuring that out with other people. It's a new, different experience because everyone's kind of like figuring things out. And we got lucky we played a few gigs in San Francisco, like just through our friends. Like some of our friends, they work at some venues or some restaurants. They let us play there. A lot of people liked us, and then we're like, oh, maybe we should like actually write some more songs, and all that, and we'll learn some covers too, because you can definitely learn from playing covers. And then and later on, like as we were doing that, we met a bunch of other people in bands of their own, and they started asking us to play with them. And then at that point, we started gigging like all over the Bay. I think the last gig we played was in like Los Gatos or something. I think so. It was somewhere more southeast of here. But yeah, we started playing at these shows, and the venues were getting a little bit bigger and bigger. Like the first few were like intimate, or like we played at like Hotel Utah. It's a great spot, very intimate. And people there are like very open to new ideas. It was great. And then we moved on up from there. It was great kind of showcasing your ideas and seeing other people like react to them and how they do it. That's with the live shows, and then how other people showcase their ideas, and that affects you somehow too, like musically. And I'd say that's kind of how the band is right now with us. Sadly, COVID is there, but we still try to communicate with each other.
And you guys did some recordings too. Did you put out a full length EP or CD, or did you guys record a few songs and start to put it out?
Yeah, definitely did. So I think at this point we have recorded 3 songs. Actually, written songs, we have probably around like 15 written songs, but we always play them a bunch of times, and then maybe we'll say like, this part, like we've always had this idea, but it always felt like it wasn't dynamic enough, or we wanted more emotion or something. So that's why we haven't chose to record those songs yet. But yeah, I think right now we have about 3 songs. We have 3 songs out. They're all singles right now. We are working on like an EP, like what songs do we want to be on the EP, and if we want it to have a theme or overall feel or something like that. So we have some stuff like that ready, to record and all that. So yeah, we have 3 songs out. They're on Spotify. Check out. The band is called Blue Lip, BLOOOLIP. So it's on everywhere: Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube. It's on Pandora, I think. You can Shazam it and everything.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So coming back from when you studied with me 11 years ago, what were some of the things that you gained from my curriculum at the time? Was I a strict teacher? Was I too relaxed, or what kind of things did you get out of it? I know you'd study with me for a year or something like that, right?
Let's see. I think I practiced under you for probably like almost 2, like about 2 years, maybe 2 years and a few months. Yeah, but initially, I wasn't too strict. I felt like there were times where he pushed me. I remember the one that, like, the one lesson that stuck with me and like kind of made me super mad at myself was like, we're just doing like regular modulation, we're just like quarter note and eighth note and 16th note. And then when we started doing the triplets in there, and at the top end of it was like the 16th triple or something. We were playing it at like 160 or something, and I was like, man, I can't play this fast, at the time. And I was like, what, 9 or something at the time. So my little hands, like, I'd practice all that. Like, I remember practicing that, like, right hand only, and then left hand only, and then together, double stop, and all that. And I couldn't play fast enough. And I remember that I'd be so mad I couldn't play fast enough. But yeah, I mean, I still do that exercise. It's a very easy kind of warm up exercise and gets the body loose. I mean, definitely, I think studying with you definitely created, the fundamentals of understanding, what notes are in drumming, and then how to and then moving on to like the drum set, like how to approach the drum set as a musical instrument. Yeah, and so I think early on, like, we did a lot of sight reading at the beginning, and I'd get through it, but I hated it. We go through all the rudiment books and it's like, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that, and all that. And I think it was fun. It did build confidence with being able to play like alongside you with the drum pads at the beginning. And we started playing the drum set, and then you played drum set with me. And there was a point where you did record me, you'd have like a loop track, and then you'd play, and then you'd tell me like, oh, make sure, like, here's an 8-bar thing, you play a loop, or you play your fill, and then you go back into it, and then you listen back to if you were dragging or rushing at some points, and you get that, because like when you're in the moment, you're kind of like flustered, you're thinking, oh, I got to be right on the beat and everything, and then when you listen to it, it's like, oh, you sped up to meet the beat, and then you slowed down to meet the beat and all that. And so it was a great tool to listen to it. I mean, also, like, with being able to play the set in the the room that you have and everything, it was great, training for your ears too, on like how to properly hit the drum to get like a good tone out of it. I think that kind of gets lost with some other kind of drumming situations where really care about the tone. And I mean, drum set wise, I mean, we went through a lot of kind of like a lot of beats. You learn a beat, and then you keep embellishing it, and then later on you want to move up into like different styles of music and everything, and with the beats and everything. So I think definitely had a solid foundation with like the beats. Like, you understand that maybe like you can listen to another drum set beat and you're like, oh, okay, I kind of get the skeleton of it now, and then what embellishments are on top of that. And after learning that foundation, definitely you can learn by ear. And I think that understanding, being able to have your head wrapped around that, it really helped. And that's the foundation you gave me there. So
awesome. I just got to add to that when you did call me to record in the studio after 11 years, the thing that you said to me was very interesting. You said, I remember your drum sound.
Yeah.
And that just was probably the first person that's done that from when you were younger, and then you're in your 20s. And I remember the drum sound, and that's why I wanted to come record at your studio.
Yeah.
I just thought that was unique. Let me move into kind of a general question. What inspires you now? Whether it be, software, music, something with your job, like what inspires you?
Generally, what inspires me is, I kind of just want to go through life doing things I enjoy, of course, like, I guess education wise, I studied so that I could be in a position where I'm a little bit more comfortable, and that I have more time to be able to allot to my passions, which of course is music. And I think what inspires me really is like being able to like leave a mark on the world. You know, either I have an idea and I put it out there and someone like listens to it and they like it, or you know, they tell me like, oh man, that was like, you know, that felt great to listen to. I felt really happy like listening to it, or like I learned something from it. Like that, I think is what really pushes me to just do things and maybe even do weirder things. I don't know. I mean, sometimes doing just stuff that no one's done before or something might, one, teach me something, but two, maybe someone else was kind of thinking that and they were afraid to do it, but they see someone else do it, they're like, okay, I'm gonna go do it. So yeah.
And a couple more questions. What's been the most challenging thing musically for you in your life?
Musically, I mean, I think, yeah, of course, sight reading. I mean, I think that's one thing. Other things, oh man, like if we're just talking about pure drum set and stuff, man, like I guess like like different time signatures kind of going one after another and everything, and then being able to feel that, and then you know, maybe somewhere like along that in the middle of it, it'll say, you know, dotted quarter note equals quarter note, and then my brain will explode. I'm like, oh man, I have to count this, you know, something like that. Yeah, something like that. Musically is challenging, but there are times where like that has happened, and then someone's like, no, you don't look at the music like that. Listen to the music, and then I just totally just, oh, I get it now by listening to it. And I think definitely with the music, with drumming, was always overthinking things, you know, and challenging wise with other music stuff that I've done is, yeah, I'm always trying to do weirder and weirder things, but still make them sound so that I'm happy with the overall product of it. And, you know, of course, everyone wants to have like the perfect song or something like that, but it's more about the progress, right? Like, it's better to release 50 songs that you're okay with versus only one song that you think is perfect. And kind of just getting into that lifestyle, I'd say, of just making stuff. That was definitely challenging. So yeah.
That's great. Okay, so last question. What advice can you give to younger musicians who are wanting to get into the business? And I ask this question as, you know, people, not everybody's going to be a musician.
Mm.
And, you know, we talking about software and learning different things and doing different kinds of jobs. But I always try to teach people there's different parts of the music business. So what advice could you give to young musicians, you know, that are getting into it, that you've been well-rounded and done so many different things?
I think when I talked about all those things, it's always number one, find the right community. It's like, if you want to work on the radio station, go work at the radio station. You'll be in a community of people who, you know, are in that field. Same thing with the music producer stuff. It doesn't have to be physically in person. It could be completely online. I have a lot of friends who are music producers, and some of them are bigger name music producers that I purely just know on Skype or on Discord. And they have these communities online. You just go ahead, just join them. You don't even need to say a single word. Just be in the area and, you know, read the comments or messages to each other. And because when you put yourself in that community, you're putting yourself in an area of competition and of knowledge, and you get to learn a bunch of different things. You learn so much faster when you put yourself in a community that thinks and feels the same way. That's, I'd say, is the number one thing, because if you're by yourself and you're like learning and you're trekking it and struggling by yourself, you're gonna get there eventually, but you might not be as happy with it because your progress is slower. When you're with the community, your progress is much faster because everyone collectively is understanding, like, man, this is hard, you know. But then someone finds out, oh, you know, if we do this way, we could, you know, it helps us out, it trains us better. That's definitely the number one thing. And I mean, always be open, you know, to invite people to your community too. I mean, I guess that could be seen as, you know, having a social media or something like that. Being open to invite people into your community is also important. But yeah, the number one thing is find a community that works for you.
Awesome. Hey, Victor, thanks for doing this. And, you know, it's really been great catching up with you.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think this is really going to help a lot of people out. So thank you for your time, and we'll see you soon, okay?
Yeah, I'll see you soon. Thank you for having me.
All right, man. Bye-bye.
Bye.